Welcome to Your Success Podcast. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go.
Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Angelos. I'm absolutely privileged today to be with Dr. John Demartini. John is a professional speaker, author, business consultant with clients ranging from Wall Street financiers, financial planners and corporate executives to healthcare professionals, actors and sports personalities. He's also the founder of the Concourse of Wisdom School of Philosophy and Healing. And Dr. Demartini began his career as a doctor of chiropractic and went on to explore more than 200 different disciplines in pursuit of what he calls universal principles of life and health. He also starred in the inspirational film, The Secret. So welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Cool. So can we let our listeners and viewers know how it all began for you? I know you turned your life around at the age of 17. So what exactly happened at 17 years old?
Well, it'd probably be better to go back a little further to put some context to it. I was told in first grade that by my first grade teacher, who was trying to teach me how to learn to read, that I would probably, and told my parents that I would never be able to read, never be able to write, never be able to communicate, never amount to anything, and never go very far in life. When I was very young, like 1.5, I had to start going to a speech pathologist because I couldn't use my mouth properly. And we had to do all these exercises with buttons and strings. And then I was also born with a leg and arm deformity and had to wear braces until I was 4. And I think those are all part of the perfection because it made me want to be free and travel and wanted me to learn how to overcome my speaking problems. But I didn't have those really mastered at that age. But in first grade, I couldn't read. I was dyslexic and I couldn't pronounce words. And so I was in the dunce class. I made it through elementary school with the help of the smartest kids in the class, asking questions, which I'm known for today by my questions. But I ended up dropping out of school when I was 13, 14, and was a street kid. So I lived on the streets, and I picked up as a sport surfing, and I was living in Texas. That wasn't the surf capital. So at 14, I hitchhiked to California and up and down Mexico and was surfing. At 15, I made it to Hawaii to surf bigger waves and lived in a tent. Well, first I lived under a bridge. Then I moved to a park bench, then a park, then an abandoned car. I kept social climbing. And I ended up eventually living in a tent, grass house kind of combination. And I was not taking care of my health, and I ended up almost dying. And luckily, a lady found me in my tent. I had been unconscious for over 3 days. And she found me there and led me to a little health food store to try to get some nutrients in me. And leaving that health food store one day, I saw a little flyer on a door introducing a speaker. And for some reason, intuitively, something led me to go to this little class. I never went to classes. School was not my thing. Learning was not my thing. I didn't even read a book until then. And this night I met this Paul C. Bragg, and he lectured. There's about 35 of us sitting on a wooden floor at this little Sunset Recreation Hall. And that night, he really got to me. And that was the night that, for the first time in my life, I believed that maybe I could overcome my learning problems with what he just said. And I had a dream to overcome my learning problems, learn how to read, learn how to speak properly, and be intelligent. I never thought I'd be intelligent, but that was the night I thought maybe I could. I really wanted to be, because I didn't want to be a dummy. And I wanted to be intelligent, so I set out on a quest with the help of him, and I studied with him over the next 3 weeks to overcome my learning problems and become a teacher. And I had a dream to go to every country in the world and travel the world and be a teacher. 47 years later, I've been to, by the end of the year, 153 countries teaching, and I keep working on that goal and dream to go to every country. And I've just been learning and reading, and now I've read over 30,000 books. I learned how to read, and once I did, it was like a dream come true. And now I've read over 30,300 books, and I just constantly read and learn and share my ideas with people. And people listen. And so I got to where I am today because of it.
So looking back then, what would you have said to that 17-year-old when he just started learning, overcoming all these major problems? What would you have said to him?
Well, nothing, just except congratulations, you found your mission.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first left Hawaii, I had not lived with my parents from 13 to about 18. And I hitchhiked, I flew back to California, hitchhiked back to Texas when I was 18. And I took a GED, which is a high school equivalency test, guessing, and I passed. I don't know how to describe it. Paul Bragg gave me a little affirmational statement to say to myself to help me overcome my learning problems. He said, every day say, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom. He says, if you say that every single day, sooner or later the cells of your body will tingle with it, and so will the world. I didn't have any reason not to believe him, so I started doing it. I have never missed a day in 47 years saying that.
Yeah.
But what happened is I guessed and literally closed my eyes and just guessed and went with a penciled-in circle, and I passed somehow. And my parents said, God, you got a high school equivalence now. So I never did go to high school, but I got to finish this test and pass by just guessing. And then I took a college entrance exam. My parents suggest that. And I figured, well, it's 3 days doing the same thing. I'll guess and see what happens. I got nothing to lose. And I passed. And then, because the surf was down in Hawaii and my parents suggested that I try to go to school, they were trying to get me to school, I decided I'd try a summer school class. Well, I took a history and English class. And when I took my first test in history, I thought I was going to pass by guessing. I ended up failing, and I got a 27. Everybody else was 72 and above. I got a 27. And I was really distraught. And in my mind, I had this first grade teacher whispering in my head, he'll never read, he'll never write, he'll never communicate, he'll never amount to anything, never go very far in life. And that day when I got that, I really was distraught. I went and ran to my car. Didn't want to look at anybody or talk to anybody. I sunk in my car because I didn't want anybody to see me there because I was crying. I drove home and I curled up in a fetal position, rolled up underneath this little Bible stand in a sunken living room at my mom's house, parents' house. And my mom came home from shopping and saw me there. She said, son, what happened? What's wrong? And I told her, I said, I blew it. I bombed the test. I got a 27. I need a 72 to pass, and I'm so far away, it's going to be hopeless. And she didn't know what to say. And finally, she reached over and put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, son, whether you become a great teacher, healer, and philosopher like you dream, because I told her that was my dream, or whether you return to Hawaii and ride giant waves like you've done, because I got to be in surf movies and things in those days, or you return to the streets and panhandle as a bum, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what you decide to do. We just love you. I couldn't have got a greater thing said at that moment. That was something that only a loving mother could do. When she said that, my hand went into a fist and I looked up and I saw the vision that I saw the night I met Paul Bragg, which is a vision of me standing in front of 1 million people and speaking, which is painted in my office today by Andrew Tischler. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading. I'm going to master this thing called studying and learning. I'm going to master this thing called teaching, healing, and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth stop me, not even myself. I got up. I hugged my mom. I walked into my room. I got a little Funkin' Wagnalls dictionary out. And I made a commitment that I was going to read that dictionary and memorize the dictionary. And so I started doing 30 words a day. And my mom would test me on 30 words a day to make sure I could spell them properly, pronounce them, using in a sentence, etc. And my vocabulary started growing. And within 2 months, I started passing tests. I didn't give up in school. I just went back and I tried harder, tried to learn how to study, tried to learn how to read. And my vocabulary grew strong enough where I started passing. And then it just kept growing. And I started reading dictionaries and reading encyclopedias. I read 8 complete sets of encyclopedias, multiple volumes sets. I just wanted to learn. And then as a year goes by now, I'm almost 19. And, by then I'm now excelling. I'm actually doing well in school. And my mom said, well, what do you want for your birthday and for Christmas this year? And I said, Mom, I want the greatest teachings on the face of the earth, the greatest writings humanity's ever created by the greatest minds who ever lived. And she kind of goes, okay, you sure you don't need a T-shirt? She was thinking, a T-shirt for Christmas. And I said, no, Mom, I'm serious. I just want to learn. I mean, this is like a dream come true. And she contacts her brother, who's my uncle, Ralph, and he was a professor at MIT. He's a physicist and chemist, very bright guy. And he, as a gift, he sent 2 giant 6 by 6 by 6 foot wooden crates of thousands of books on a flatbed truck to our home. And they literally put them down on the ground. I got a crowbar out and I opened it all up and just filled my room with thousands of books. And I had this little yoga mat in the center so I could see the sunrise. And I just sat and I started reading 18 hours a day. If I wasn't driving to school or being at school, I was reading. And I started reading 18, sometimes 20 hours a day. Every book I could get my hand on in every field that he was able to send. And I just lived to learn. And after a while, as you live to learn, for some reason, you start doing well in school and people start asking you questions. And I started by late 18, I was already having students come up to me and asking me for assistance. And it meant so much to me to have somebody ask me to help. And so I started teaching in the library there, and I started tutoring. And then when I got to the University of Houston, I'd have 100 to 150 people every day outside under the trees, asking questions and having talks. And it grew to sometimes 400 people. And when I went on to professional school, I continued every single day teaching. Every night I would teach. I get up at 2 in the morning, do yoga to 2:30, speed read, because I learned how to speed read after a while, and started speed reading from 2:30 to 6:30. I'd read 4 to 7 books, about a book every 45 minutes. And then I would share every night what I'd read.
So you're retaining the knowledge as
well?
well?
I was retaining it. I'm a master reader. Whatever I read, I retain. I just kept saying that. And I learned that if I teach it, the sooner I teach it to when I learn it, the more I retain. And I started linking whatever I was reading to what was most important to me, the evolution of human consciousness, the maximizing human awareness and potential. And I started getting a system in place, and I started excelling. And I graduated at the top of the professional school and opened up a practice, taught every night, built a very successful practice in literally 18 months. So I went from a 1,000 square foot office to a 5,000 square foot office, 5 doctors, 12 staff members in 18 months. And amazing things started just kicking into gear. And then I started getting opportunities to speak in my profession first, and then other health professions, and then other industries. And it just kept growing around the world till now I've been blessed to speak in 153 countries.
So I think it's fair to say that you are a genuine polymath, which means a master of many different...
Well, I don't know about a master in every field, but I have certainly read now 300 disciplines. And I set out a goal to read 100 books in each discipline. So I made a list of all the ologies and disciplines you could study, and then I made a commitment to read 100 books in each area, so I would have an equivalent of a PhD in that area. So I love reading and learning, and I do get to speak on almost unimaginable topics, from dentistry to cancer to physics to astronomy to you name it. And so people go, well, that doesn't make sense. So, you should be a specialist. But I never found a specialty by itself sufficient. I wanted to learn as much as I could. And so I read and I write in every field, because as far as I'm concerned, it all relates to the evolution of human consciousness.
You specialize and you consult and you help people discover themselves and work out inner conflicts and try and resolve them to move forward in their lives. Is there a way that someone can truly know themselves, or is it a constant journey of self-discovery?
Well, I don't know if it's ever finite, but every human being has a set of priorities, a set of values that they live their life by. And whatever's highest on the value, it's an intrinsic value, and it spontaneously wants to be expressed. And whatever's low on the value, you have extrinsic motivations to get you to do it. I'll use the example of a kid who loves video games. He doesn't have to be reminded or motivated or incentivized to do his video games. He loves doing it, it's spontaneous. But he has to be motivated to do his homework, chores, and cleaning his room. So whatever's highest on your value, which is intrinsic, you identify yourself by. Your highest value is your identity revolves around. And I've done that on probably 250,000 people to prove that. So we do have an identity, and it's an expression of what we intrinsically are called inside, feel that we're here to do. And everybody has that. And people don't believe they have it because they compare themselves to other people and inject other people's values, trying to conform and fit in instead of stand out, and then cloud the clarity of that calling that's their own highest value. But everybody has it, and I help people clear out the distractions of the injected values that they've inculcated and actually get them clear on what that is. So you can know that. You can know how to structure your life around it. The old Delphic Oracle, know thyself, be thyself, love thyself, is true. If you know what your highest value is and you structure your life and so you can fill your day with those highest priority things and delegate the rest away, you'll love your life, you'll be yourself, you'll be integral and authentic, and you'll know yourself epistemologically. And ontologically, your identity will be that. So you can do that, but it's a moving system. You're constantly tweaking and refining. The values are tweaking as you go through life. So to say you know it and it's done, it would be inaccurate. But to say to know yourself, you can get really approximate where you can know what you are and have great fulfillment doing it.
You can know the core.
You can know the core of what you're up to. I know I'm a teacher and I'm here to travel the world. I don't question that. I know that and I live that. And I've delegated everything else. I only research, write, travel, teach. I don't do anything else. I haven't driven in 30 years. I haven't cooked in 40 years. I learned a long time ago that anytime you do low priority things, you devalue yourself. Anytime you stick to the highest priority things, you value yourself. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your life will fill up with low priority distractions that don't. So if you want an inspiring life, it's about prioritizing and giving yourself permission to let go of anything less than that, say no to it, and say yes to the things that are truly meaningful to you.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, because people go, well, you don't do any domestic things? I said, no.
Yeah.
I don't. I have drivers that take me places. I have people that cook. I'm useless except for researching, writing, traveling, and teaching. That's it.
Because everything else is distraction from the core purpose, right?
What I feel that you can't build incremental momentum and do something extraordinary, scattering yourself too far. Now, people say, well, what about all that polymathic studying? Is that a scatter? Not if it's linked to a common super tasked state. If you take all the studies and link it to one thing, you're really studying one thing, different aspects of one thing. And if I was to try to do it in all those areas, I'd scatter. But if I keep that one thing focused, as Gary Keller says, the one thing, the rest of those things get integrated into that, and you build momentum towards it.
It's not the tree with many roots, but it's not, they're all feeding the common purpose.
It's feeding the common purpose.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So how does one get the very best out of themselves, especially if they've not had a great upbringing like you had in the early teenage years? Is it to educate yourself? What is it that can really bring the best out of someone?
Well, one of the greatest questions you can ask is, how is whatever I've experienced in life helping me fulfill my mission? And be accountable to answer that question. There's nothing your mortal body can experience that your mortal soul can't love, is an old proverb. And no matter what happens in your life, it's not what happens to you, it's how you perceive it, what you decide to do with it, and how you act from it. So you ask yourself, okay, I had a young boy this weekend at my Breakthrough Experience program. He says, well, I was abandoned as a child. My mother didn't want me. I was no good and everything else. I said, okay, so just out of curiosity, you're like an orphan? He goes, yes, I was an orphan. And I said, well, let's go out and get the internet out. Pull up your phone. And he pulled it up. And I said, let's go look up celebrity orphans, people that started out as orphans. We found a list of 700 people. And, Sir Isaac Newton was one of them. I said, some of the greatest minds who ever lived and greatest people who have ever lived started out just like you. You're in that category. He goes, I reframed it. He goes, you mean to tell me that some of the greatest minds, greatest leaders, greatest people in the world started out just like me? He said, yeah, that means you've been gifted with an opportunity, that your mother loved you enough to give you delegations to get other people to help you along the journey, to give you a diversified experience, to make sure you do something unique. And he goes, how come nobody told me to think like that? I said, well, they're probably victims of history, not masters of destiny. Take whatever you experience in life and find out how it's serving what you're here to do, and it's never in the way. Nothing's in the way unless you choose to make it in your mind in the way. Yeah. And he goes, God, in 15 minutes of talking to you, I feel like I can do whatever I want. I said, you can. There's nothing except you've been surrounding yourself with a belief system that those are all blocks instead of those are opportunities. And I go, anything you can't say thank you for in life is baggage. Anything you can say thank you for is fuel. Anyway, he shifted his whole perspective, and at the end, he wrote down a mission statement of what he wanted to do, and he realized that this was exactly what he needed. That starting point was what he needed to fulfill it. And he's like, my life just shifted today. I said, great, that's the purpose of the breakthrough experience. So it's never what happens to you. William James, the father of modern psychology, said that the greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their life by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. It's true.
So sometimes you need to get out your own way.
Well, many times you've injected the belief system of other people into you, and you've given them power, and you've subordinated to them, and their value system is not in line with what you want, and so you got this internal conflict. And you live by deontologically by duty according to those people you conform to. And I said, you got to stand out, not fit in. If you fit in, you're going to end up being in mediocrity. You got to stand out and give yourself permission to shine.
Do you find that's usually parents, family,
It could be mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, conventions, traditions, mores. It could be many things that you've subordinated to. I had a lady recently in Houston, Texas, that was subordinating to what she believed was a Judaic Moses teaching that was misinterpreted by one of her rabbis, and I showed that he was actually hypocritical and was not living by this thing, and she was beating herself up thinking, I can't be where I want to be because I've done this in my life, and I'm going, transcend that, man. That's living in a really boxed, and I hope to break through that. And she goes, and afterwards she goes, wow, I didn't even realize that I had been subordinating to a box, a belief system that may not be the one that you want to create what you want in life. And you got to give yourself permission to get out of the box and say, well, how do I want my life? Yeah. Most people will say, what college should I go to that's a good college so I can get a quality education, leverage that brand, and pay a fortune for it? What company should I work for security? What sport team should I support to make me, special, the winning sport team? What religion should I belong to be the true tribal belief system? And they go around and they subordinate in the 7 areas of life, and they don't realize that another question they could ask is, what educational institution do I want to create? I have a friend that's created 5 universities. He's built 5 universities. And I thought, that's a way more creative thinking. And what football team or sports team or sport industry do I like to own or create? A friend of mine started the surfing industry, and now it's the surfing is an Olympic system today. But beforehand, it was just a sandlot type of activity. So, or you go, well, what educational institution do I want to create? Or what international business do I want to create? Or what new spiritual movement do I want to create on the world? Most people don't give themselves permission. They just go, who do I fit into and who do I subordinate to?
And sometimes you don't even realize it, right? So
you don't even realize you're doing it.
You've got them 3 core Abrahamic religions, and they have influenced society for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And whether you realize it or not consciously, they influence what we do, how our society is set out, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, probably 4 billion people are sitting in that one. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that it's true. It just means that there's 4 billion people following it. So if everybody follows it, well, it must be true. I better do that. Otherwise, I won't fit in. Yeah. And there's not that there's not wisdom and great wisdom from all of those. It's just that you have to ask yourself, you're unique on the planet. You have a unique set of values. How do you want to spend your life? Your life is your life.
Yeah, I guess for me, the driving factor is what is true. Finding out that truth.
For your own path. And that may not be what everybody's been telling you.
Exactly.
And Paul Dirac, the Nobel Prize winner, said, it's not that we don't know so much, we know so much that isn't so.
Yeah. So I've got a question for you. You are very well known across the globe. You starred in The Secret. I know they're filming another film. I won't say too much. And you are in very esteemed company with Dr. Hawking, for example. In The Secret, they allude to this universal power. And if you tap into that power, you can become a great success. You can align yourself to that power and it will take you there. How do you translate that to someone who doesn't necessarily have a belief in a higher being or a divine purpose, for example? They're a pure scientist, for example. How would you translate the science of success and reconcile it against the Secret film and what they were talking and what you were talking about?
Well, first of all, The Secret film is Rhonda Byrne's creation. Mm-hmm. the individuals that happened to be in there all had different views. And she took bits and pieces to make the view that it became. I don't think anybody in the movie actually went with everything that was taught in the movie. I certainly didn't. I thought that they left out a lot of action and prioritization and strategies and many things, but still I'm grateful for the opportunity to be in there. A scientist, a real true objective-seeking scientist, would not pursue the solutions to problems in the world, mathematical or other, if he or she did not believe that there was some rational order in the universe. They wouldn't be looking for that universal equation, you might say, if they did not believe that there's some sort of rational order in the universe. Now, you could say, well, if there's no rational order and it is purely random and it's a stochastic system and there's just probabilities and things and there's no way of ever knowing what's really going on, then you would have no rationale for trying to create a science to get us to the moon, for instance. But I think most scientists acknowledge that there is an inherent rational order, mathematical or other, that underlies nature. And I don't think you could get a Nobel Prize or something, a study for 30 to 40 years if you didn't believe there was rationality to it. Now, the question is, if there's order in the universe, there's non-randomness in some places, and randomness, at least perceptually, then the question is what's causing that? What's led to that? Or how did that emerge?
What are those universal laws and how did they come
What
about?
are those universal laws? That's been my pursuit. And some believe, ultimately, many of them were panpsychics. Many of the great minds were panpsychics. There's probably a good 1,000 names that are panpsychics through time that believe that there was a field of intelligence, a mind field, you might say, that the universe is built out of. They believe that even beyond space, time, energy, or matter, there's an underlying consciousness that's involved in that. Others believed, no, consciousness emerged over time by organic structures as an emergent system, a self-organizing emergent system. There's all different belief systems out there. But deep inside, I've met scientists at the highest levels that have a panpsychic sense, that they may not say it publicly, because their reputation could be affected by other people because they still subordinate to other people sometimes. But without that belief in some sort of an order, whatever that order came from, whether it's intelligence that actually made those laws, and it's an anthropic principle, or just happens to be that nature formulated that, which is pretty improbable and has led to the idea of a multi-universe, an infinite number of universes in order to get the probability to be there. Either way, I think that underlying most scientists is there's a belief in something, but they may not want to use the terms God because God has been tainted by anthropomorphisms. Einstein didn't like anthropomorphisms, but he didn't deny the idea that there may be a field of intelligence that permeates the universe. He even used that term in one of his quotes. But I'm a firm believer that there is an intelligence. I am not interested in anthropomorphics myself because I can see that that's derived from phobias of human beings and dissociations and trying to protect yourself from fears and things like that. I'm not interested in those. It's tainted by the projection of human behavior onto gods with punishment rewards. None of that means anything to me. I don't see a rewarding and punishing type. I just see the laws of the universe being expressed intelligently and that we are here on a pursuit, unconsciously or consciously, to uncover those laws. And to the degree that we do, it brings an awe-inspirational state to people. And it fulfills their life to discover the hidden order in their apparent chaos. And some people say, well, that's just because we can't handle the chaos. And we need to do that. It makes us feel good and we get dopamine rushes. That could be true. But I think there's more than that because I've been doing it 47 years. And there is a order that shows up. And if you do 300 different disciplines, which I've been blessed to do, there is definitely principles that underlie all of them. The law of the one to many, the law of similars and differences, the law of quantity and quality, the multitude and magnitude. There are principles that are pretty consistent in the dialectic of study. So I'm a firm believer that there is a rational order and there is an intelligence. I've worked to try to create a model and a method to give people a glimpse of that. And I've successfully pulled that off in the breakthrough experience. So I love teaching that and showing people and making them pause for thought so they're now on a quest to explore it. So I think it's inherent inside us to make that quest. And the more we see it, the more we are inspired to want to learn. And I'm a firm believer that there's fulfillment in life in learning.
And there's so much more to learn, right?
There's no end.
Yeah.
No one can keep up with it. But I like to think of it as that we have the opportunity to go and explore it. John Archibald Wheeler, it used to be at the Institute of Advanced Studies at Princeton, who I had the opportunity to go and visit his office. I didn't get to meet him, but he passed away. But he believed that the whole universe was C to the fourth power, and he called it love. And I thought, here's a leading physicist, worked with Einstein, Niels Bohr, all of them, and he believed that the universe was completely participatory universe, built out of intelligent measurements, and it was basically love, and the summation of all the experiences in the universe all canceling each other into this beautiful thing he called love. I thought, what an amazing metaphysical pursuit inside physics. Leonard Susskind also believed in an anthropic idea of panpsychism. Newton was a panpsychic. Schrodinger was a panpsychic. Max Planck was a panpsychic. Einstein definitely had plenty of quotes referring to it. So I'm not against the idea, and I've done my best to try to participate in adding something to the realization of that.
Yeah. So you mentioned Einstein, general theory of relativity. He called the world of quantum spooky physics. Do you think the two sides will eventually reconcile with one theory of everything?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I think that when I first started studying quantum physics, the very first book I picked up on quantum physics was Paul Dirac. I was 18 years old, and it was one of the physics books that my uncle sent. I had a dictionary next to me, and I need another dictionary, a broader magnitude dictionary to understand it, because about every third word I didn't know. But I was determined I was going to study that book, and it was a big book, and it was a lot of work in there. But that was the first acquaintance I had with quantum physics. And the thing that really inspired me is it talked about a positron and an electron emerging in a cloud chamber, a bubble chamber, from a gamma photon. And by a major Gauss magnet separating light into matter and antimatter. It took Einstein's equation, Paul Dirac added some more, put Dirac matrices together, and he divided this thing. And I saw that, and I was going, And then he said, if you put them in particle accelerators and slam them together, instead of generating particle and antiparticle, you're annihilating them and turning them back into gamma photons. And I thought, And I just took this crazy metaphor. I was pretty ignorant as a student. I was just learning, and so I didn't know any better. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if we took positive and negative emotions and slammed together. Could we make enlightenment? Just kind of a wild thing there. And so I went on a pursuit to study psychology, the brain research, physics, to try to put together a model. I developed a model which is being used today and spreading around the world on how to have a really inspired, tear-jerking, open-hearted, mystical experience from slamming together two states of emotion synchronously. And I found a way of having access to equanimity by asking questions that allow us to see both sides at the same time. Most people don't believe we do it. We have a dialectic over time, and it's causal, universal law of causality. This is a way of accessing an acausal synchronous state that Wolfgang Pauli and Carl Jung had tried to access. We found a way to do it. I developed a system for it. So now we have a way of scientifically duplicating a spiritual experience, a metaphysical experience almost. And I've duplicated it. I had Keio University, Professor Maeno recently, and Shoga has now just done follow-up on that. We're following up on people that have gone through this process, and they're going, this is quite extraordinary what's happening. They've never seen this before. We've got a 100% track record of transforming grief, for instance, from a death process into grace and love and appreciation by doing this method. So it's revolutionary in that respect.
So what is that method called, John?
Well, the method is called the Demartini method, and it's a series of questions that make you conscious of unconscious content in your perception. If you infatuate with something, you're conscious of the upsides, you're unconscious of the downsides. If you resent something, you're conscious of the downsides, unconscious of the upsides. If you love something, you're conscious of both sides synchronously. So what it is a series of questions that awaken unconscious content in the mind, which your intuition is attempting to reveal, and make you become aware of the both sides at the same time, a synchronicity of opposites. And I call it a synthesis and synchronicity of complementary opposites. And when you do, it's like taking two particles and making enlightenment. And there's this burst of aha and tears of inspiration because you realize, my God, there is an order inherent in the chaos that you originally thought. And then you realize that your infatuation and resentment dissolve. And all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're going, there's nothing to be fixed. Because when you infatuate, you tend to inject values from others and tend to want to live in their values. When you resent, you tend to project values and try to get them to live in your values. Neither one of them are effective. And they're basically expenditure of energy and it's dissipative. The moment you actually synchronize it, there's a no desire to fix anything. There's an awe, grace, appreciation for the way it is. And I say that now human will matches the universe. And there's now an appreciation of the universe that happens. And it's awe-inspiring. And so I developed this system for that to help people see the hidden order in their apparent chaos. It's really amazing.
And they can find more information from the Demartini Institute.
Yeah, if they go on my drdemartini.com, they can go and explore it.
I like how you systemize enlightenment.
Believe it or not, that was at age 14 when I read that book, I wanted to create a scientific ritual that allowed people to have a spiritual experience, but not with anthropomorphisms, false gods, dissociated systems of fear, protecting us from fears, none of that stuff. Just an awe-inspiring appreciation of the way the universe works.
Yeah. Just very quickly, John, because I know your time is precious. If you could meet 3 people from any time in history, living or past, who would you meet and why?
Well, many people. I was asked by Vogue magazine one time, if there's anybody in the world you could be, who would you be? And I said, just me. I don't have no desire to be anybody else. But when I was 18 years old and I first moved back from Hawaii, and Paul Bragg had given me that quote, "I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom." I really didn't know what that meant. Sounded cool. But I asked my mom, I remember asking her one day, I said, what exactly is a genius, Mom? I've been saying this statement, but I really didn't comprehend its meaning. And she said, well, a genius is someone like Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein, people like that, Tesla, someone like that. And I said, well, then get me every book that's ever been written on those men so I can devour everything I can on them. So I would love to have met, Einstein. Now, some of the things that he did, I can look back now and I can realize that the syncretic development of the philosophers and thinkers prior to him, I can see how he built upon it, and he just made another little incremental step, but he did good marketing. He did good marketing. But then I realized also Da Vinci did the same. There was marketing in part in that. But any great mind, I've had the opportunity to meet with Herbert Wertheim, who has 4,000 patents. And he is a very bright mind. And anytime I get to meet a very bright mind who is inspired at solving problems, I'm inspired. So any human being that is in any field that is truly committed to the solutions for humanity and wanting to pursue problems that have not been able to be solved mathematically or physics or any field really, it doesn't matter what field it is, maybe engineering, any field. Anybody that has a true commitment and dedication to fulfilling the solutions, problems to solutions, or solving the problems in humanity, I love meeting.
Yeah. What does success mean to you, John?
Well, I don't use the word success. That's a succession left brain kind of thinking. I'd rather use the word fulfillment, filling full the mind in pursuit of what is void in your life. I always say if you infatuate with somebody, you're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you, and there's a void. When you're resentful to somebody, you're too proud to admit what you see in them is inside you, and there's a void. And anything you judge, you create voids. And fulfillment is transcending the judgments and seeing the hidden order and loving it. And so to me is identifying what your hierarchy of values are, identifying that highest priority, orchestrating your life according to priority, delegating and giving other job opportunities to help the economy by other people having jobs for the things you want to delegate, and doing what you absolutely love doing and inspiring people through exemplification of fulfilling the solutions to the greatest problems you can do in your field, because that's what that purpose is. Any of that is meaningful to me. That's my definition. And whatever that may be, it could be raising a family, it could be a social cause, it could be a metaphysical, spiritual cause. I don't care what area it is. It's just finding out that niche for you and giving yourself permission to do it and not be inculcating everybody else's thing, trying to fit in and lose and dilute your potential. But anybody that's willing to do that, to me, is fulfilled.
Yeah, I like the fact that you've redefined success. I think that's absolutely
because
brilliant.
success is sort of a left brain succession, and it's a linear kind of thinking. And I think our right brain has whole S, not success. And I think the merging of those two has got another name, and I call it fulfillment.
Yeah. So I've been inspired just spending a little bit of time with you, John. I'm sure a lot of people will be listening and watching this. How do people get more information about what you do and how you can help people?
Well, the simplest way to do it is just go to my website, drdemartini.com. It's DRDEMARTINI.com. My website is an educational website. You could probably spend the rest of your life just watching videos, reading articles, magazines, newspapers, podcasts, YouTubes, whatever it is. And it's mainly for education, and let people know about educational opportunities that I'm doing around the world. And that's it. I'm a researcher, writer, traveler, teacher. My website pretty well reflects that. And if anybody's interested in exploring the magnificence of the universe, then I'm the guy to have a contact with.
Yeah, for sure. All right, John, well, thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you.
I've really enjoyed it, and thank you for coming on. I would love to hear what you at home think of our guest today. Please get in contact at helloyoursuccesspodcast.com, or check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We're everywhere. So thanks again, John.
Yes, thank you.
Absolute legend you are.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And tune again for our next exciting episode of Your Success Podcast.
You have been listening to Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.yoursuccesspodcast.com.